Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family, Heart's Home family, EEARTS family.
It's a tongue twister kind of day, really, it is.
It can be, guys. Thank you for being part of this family. We truly appreciate each and every one of you guys, and we really do enjoy going through your comments and replying as we can. So, we are going to talk about, higher self. How do you know your life's purpose? And Cindy's going to talk about soul alignment. And so, there's some common themes that we see time and time again when we have sessions with people, whether we're doing a Vedic astrology chart and energy session or just energy session and maybe speaking to guides. Again, everything is so interconnected. And I think probably the very biggest thing in this incarnation that we're living is, why did we come here in the first place? What could be a bigger question than, why am I here? And part of that why am I here is, why did I jump through into the matrix at the time I did, that's going to present me with all these challenges and issues and some extra ability over here. It really does remind me a little bit of the game Dungeons and Dragons when I was a kid. Like, you get so many hit points and, well, what's your character going to be? Well, let's see, if I got 100 hit points, I'm going to make him super strong. He's going to get 65 for strength, but then you only got 35 left for things like intellect, reasoning, endurance, dexterity, all the rest. And there's a reason why we jump through the matrix when we do. And you might find that, you have an astrological chart that shows that you're not going to really have easy success in personal relationships in this life. Well, that's because that's not what you came here to do then. What you came here to do was probably a lot of introspection and self-journeying. And then again, we can look at different aspects, and you might find that, wealth is always going to elude you. But then again, that's part of the bigger picture. Why did we come in? What does the higher self have in store for us? What is our life's purpose?
Oh, that higher self, that higher self, it can really send you for a loop, really, in questioning yourself. Why did I choose this? Because if you're on this journey, you probably have heard something about, well, this is what you signed up for. And at some level, some deep level, this is your choice. And when it comes to soul alignment, it's a complete match to your deepest truth. Who are you at your core? Why? It's the big why. And so many times people come into this world, and even when it comes to the birthing process, that's barbaric in and of itself. It should be a quiet, intimate time with you and your family, and now they have most women hooked up to monitors, beeps, and it's very loud. It's very chaotic. So when a being is trying to come into this new world, instead of a nice, calm process, the first thing it gets is shocked. Oh my gosh. They spank it on their butt. They make them cry. They go through all of these things and all these lights, all these noises, and there's nothing intimate about that. And it is a real thing when it comes to traumatic birth syndrome. I learned that when I was learning to do my tuning forks, my biofield tuning, that there's something to that. It really can have a ripple effect through our lives. But with the soul alignment, we realign you. So regardless of the traumas that you have gone through, we're kind of able to pick you up where you're at, move you over, and set you back on that path so you can start to understand who you are. What are my likes? What are my dislikes? And sometimes that might have, along with it, some pretty big life changes, but they're important life changes.
Yeah, exactly. And, the other thing too is, traditionally we don't mature until later in life. And even with like having a chart read, traditionally, you don't like Cindy was just saying, 42 is like when you're considered to be spiritually mature enough to start to move forward in your spiritual work. It's always a process, but that's when we're considered spiritually mature in this yuga. But besides that, there's other things too, like when we talk about reading charts and stuff, like you don't normally read for little kids or even teenagers.
Or young people.
And really part of this is that the planets are supposed to hold sway to a certain point in our lives. And, what I'm seeing is that so many people in this time are being faced with really big decisions because, we might have achieved all these things that we wanted to achieve since our youth. And I've shared with you guys before, and I'll just bring it up again. In my family, my parents never, they were always paycheck to paycheck, week to week, always rented in their entire lives. My mom lived to be 90, my dad to 75. Neither one of them owned a home, quote unquote. Now, of course, most of the time when we say we own a home, the bank owns the home. We just pay the bank. But those that have paid off the bank and are just still paying the government and the state and maybe even the county taxes, this is the system that we're in. The amount of people that get to that point, unfortunately, are few and far between in these days. But the point was that we moved all the time, and as a kid, that made me feel very, very unstable in some ways. Although my parents never argued, never. I mean, they were, they're kind of almost like Leave It to Beaver when you get down to it. So I was pretty blessed in that sense. Yet that feeling uprootedness, that gave me just one goal in life. I'm going to own my own place because, a couple of times we had to move when it wasn't even our decision. People were getting foreclosed. We were paying rent and they didn't pay the mortgage. And so next thing you know, we're getting booted out. And, that really stuck with me. So I only had one goal, and that was to basically, I was going to own my own house so nobody could boot me out. And, I did do that by, I think, 22. And then I felt totally empty because, that really wasn't my purpose. And in fact, that house then tied me down, which was really kind of contrary to my spirit. So I was in that house 17 years, by far the most I was in, any house. And it really did feel more like a lead weight than freedom. But again, it's because it wasn't what this life was to be about. I had a lot of things to learn. I had a lot of places to go, people to meet, and I had to experience different cultures, even though it's still in the same country for the most part. I have traveled outside of the country. But again, just like when you move from the Northeast and then you go live in the South, that's very different. Then you live in the Midwest for a while, that's different. Then you go move west, yeah, that's different too. They're all different cultures. And boy, it's a blessing in my mind. But what I'm getting to is that many of us have these goals given to us by our egos. And the ego is something that's necessary to keep us out of harm's way and alive. But that ego, the goal of that ego, certainly in many, many cases, maybe most, is not the same as the goal of the higher self. It's not why you came in here in the first place. And that's why you might achieve, oh, well, I got to have this, got to have that, and then you achieve it, and then you feel empty, just as empty as if you never achieved it.
Mm-hmm. And ego usually acts out of trauma. And had Mike not gone through those traumas, he probably really, I've looked at his chart. I would not recommend for him to have bought and married early, because he's one who just couldn't settle down really for until later on in his life. And that's where things would have gone a lot smoother. And that's a really good example of seeing how ego steps in when there's trauma. And it's not because it's the right thing to do to buy the house. It's because that was the safe thing for him to do, because that's the vibration he's matching up, with his parents feeling so unstable at home. He's going to match up to that vibration, but that doesn't make it right.
And I'll even go so far as to say that it was fear-driven.
Yeah.
It really was. It was a fear-driven response. And I was afraid of being told again, you got to move. And, one of the last places that I lived with my parents, I loved it. And it was just a small little house. And maybe that's what's imprinted on me, as it seems like I've always, affordability or whatever, it's always been small little houses. But it was a small little house that I really felt comfortable in. And my parents had the opportunity to buy it, and they didn't even conceive that they could actually own a house. So they didn't attempt to, but if they did, it would have changed their financial situation, because, the house appreciated probably eightfold, in the time period from when that opportunity arose until now. And, again, they didn't go for it because of fear-based conditioning. And maybe that had something else. Maybe that had something to do with their charts. I've never pulled up their charts. So, it could be in their charts too. You never know. So that's the thing, is finding clues to the higher self. And I don't think there's a better clue really than when you jumped into the matrix.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's little breadcrumbs that help us, bring us understanding, little things that happen in our life where we kind of think this is what we're supposed to be doing. But, when is it when you know that you have fallen into that cradle of life that you came here to live? And that really doesn't start until you go on that fearless search within yourself to say, okay, I'm going to look at these things. I might not like them, but I do want to understand life. I want to understand my life. I want to understand my behavior. And you really have to step back to be able to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that takes growth and time. Again, when we're young, a lot of what we do is just, following ego, and some of it's following hormones. And it's not until we get a little bit older that we start to be able to get to the point of spiritual maturity, where we could take a step back and really look at our motivations for wanting this and for wanting that. Are we just basically buying what society is selling us? You got to keep up with the Joneses. Their yard looks greener. Their car is bigger, their house is bigger, all these things that are constantly in society. Oh, the American dream, like there was a uniform American dream, and now they're crushing all that on society and taking away everything that's been put up there as, what we're supposed to strive for. And you might look at that as a negative, but the reality is now we might be able to actually find ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Right. And what mainstream does, it always sells based on fear. Based on fear, you might not have this, or you might not look like that, or, life might not turn out blah, blah, blah. But the thing is it's fear. We really have to get a good idea on the fear-driven response inside of our souls, so that we can actually look up and take a deep breath and say, oh, okay, well, this is my purpose.
Yeah, I've seen so many of these, like this picture that we have here, and you see the person, and then you see maybe the astral self, and then you see maybe the higher self, and you see a funnel coming down into the crown chakra. And that's pretty accurate, because we're always drawing in cosmic energy when our crown chakra is open, and we are able to communicate to the higher self and our guides when the crown chakra is open. And so we have to keep that open. Society's always looking to close our chakras. And again, if you have basic fears about surviving, it's going to just throw your root chakra into a tailspin. And once that's shut off, then there's no energy flowing above it. So this is part of how everything truly works. And, this is another interesting one where you could see kind of here, I've seen this done numerous times, showing like Yeshua over here, and the light being maybe source down to our quote unquote Christ or christened selves, that higher aspect of us that perhaps is residing on 5D or maybe even above that. And then this is kind of cool because, yes, you have somebody that's embodied right here. You can interpret this many ways. Maybe these are our guides. Maybe these are past lives. Maybe these are co-lives. This is something that, maybe people haven't heard of quite as much. Co-lives. And yeah, in reality, the higher self can have more than one incarnation going at the same time. Now that gets a little tricky.
I know we were talking to one of our family members, hi Michelle, today, and we were talking about those things that are so difficult to wrap your head around. One of them is that there's really no time, and the time that does exist is really for this 3D experience that we're having. And then what about the concept of, wow, I could be staggered in different timelines? Oh my gosh, how could that be? Lots of questions out there, but this is the fun part. You get to dig for the answers, and you need to find the answers that's going to fit with your soul, not with what someone else told you.
Yeah, and Michelle is an amazing individual. She's really super gifted. Just I don't think she understands how gifted she is, but that's the way for so many of ours that we're blessed to work with on a regular basis. We have so many people that are just amazingly gifted, and they do get it, and they can actually connect. And Michelle was bringing up about like how much of the time, am I per se processing, because our dreams can be just processing things that are happening in life. They can be running out different scenarios in our mind. Little things might be like running through our head. You might remember a relationship that you ended, 10 years ago, and you might be, wondering what if. And so in the dream, you could be replaying that what if. And, that could be just something that your subconscious is playing out. However, you could also be jumping over, in some cases, to these co-lives. I mean, I did that recently, and I looked in the mirror, and it wasn't me. And I was really, what I was doing was exploring one of these co-lives that was happening, I feel, over somewhere in Asia, and it did feel like it was now. And the person didn't look even remotely like me. And I've had that happen too with another one where I got the impression that it was somewhere in Canada. And, again, this is part of the big reveal with our consciousness, because we are we have these pathways, not only to our co-lives, also to our past lives, and also to our spirit guides. And many of the times our spirit guides are people that we come in and co-incarnate with at different times. Or, sometimes we'll jump in first, they'll come in later. Sometimes it'll be, just the opposite. But we're all connected. We're always connected. And it really stresses the importance of having a regular spiritual practice. It's got to be daily. It really has to be daily. It has to be a priority. Unless you've had such amazing past life dedication to developing that, then you might be one of those extremely gifted people that, people will be amazed by. Like our Cindy here is pretty, she is.
He's prejudiced.
No, she is incredibly gifted. I mean, how many people can do what she does at this point in time? Not too many. Give it another couple hundred years, a lot, actually.
That's, I think, part of ourselves that we struggle with, trying to find out what am I good at. Because with the information that I channel, it was so simple and easy. I assumed everyone did it. I assumed everyone could see my friend Jerry next to me. So I didn't ask, and I didn't have any questions about Jerry. Jerry was always with me. And when Jerry's parents came over, well, they're there. So I never mentioned them either. I just assumed that the family knew what was going on. And if there were different ghost animals, I assumed that everybody knew the ghost animals were there too. It wasn't until I think I was in my early 20s when I asked my dad, I'm like, Dad, where did my friend Jerry and his parents ever go? Because I was thinking about reconnecting, and he looked at me and he says, sweetheart, there never was any Jerry or Jerry's parents. He said, that was all made up by you. And Jerry and his parents were just as real as Mike is sitting with me right here, right now. The difference with me is I didn't know how to separate things in my third eye and my two eyes. And it wasn't until I went through life and I understood what was going on that now I can separate those two things. And it was not an easy path. It was very difficult. And for me to step out and find myself and realize myself was very difficult, because it did upset my family. It did hurt my family. I kind of, broke bounds. I broke away, because I do come from, a beautiful family, but they're also very, very religious. So when I talk about my abilities, that is really upsetting and disturbing, because they honestly think that I'm going to go to hell. And that makes me sad. I wish they didn't. But that I can't fix that. That's not for me to fix. That's something for them to look at.
Absolutely. But again, if we can discern what the plan is for this life, then we can move ourselves into alignment. And unfortunately, the majority of people are not in alignment. That's but that's part of the system that's in place. It's to keep you from being in alignment. In fact, you have to be an exceptional person to actually be in alignment in this world. But once you understand all these things, then you can move forward. And then, again, one of the biggest keys is a regular, daily, every single day practice. And with us, that's always mantras. And usually it's also involving Qigong and yoga, as well as, some other techniques. Of course, working on people all the time, that also brings us into contact with our guides more and more. So we're so used to working with them. We're so used to listening for clues. And, at one point in time, before Cindy and I together, that's what my entire focus was. And, often I'd have 12 to 14 hour days where that's what I was pretty much doing. And, it really did advance my ability to hear and to get insight from the other side tremendously. And then now that I have, Cindy with me the last 5 years or so, it's, I'm just so used to saying, okay, I just picked up something. What did you just pick up? And I won't give her anything, and she knows what it is, because we're both constantly working with each other to, verify the things that are coming from the other side and to see if we're getting the same things. You can, if you have a loved one that is interested, a friend, partner, family member, you could grab just a deck of cards and play a little game. See if you could get, spades, hearts, diamonds, see if you could pick up on the numbers. They have cards you could even buy that are used for different psychic testing procedures and all, but it's not even necessary. You could just grab a tarot deck or a regular deck. There's all different things you can do to work on these perceptions. But daily is key, quiet time is key, and nature is key.
I really like the idea of tarot decks. On my path and my journey with the abilities that I have, there was quite a lot of trauma. And because of that trauma, I avoided my abilities because I thought, well, they're the problem. But now I understand that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So that's how, when we get thrown out of alignment, we might not be living our purpose. But as far as exercising those perceptive abilities, I love tarot because then you're starting to read energy. I don't like the, guessing what things are so much, because so much of this life has been wrapped around whether we get something right or wrong in school, and then we judge ourselves based on that. So definitely exercising those things that are going to be that constant positive reinforcement is the way I think we should go when it comes to building up our spiritual perceptive abilities.
Absolutely. And again, mantras, I think, are the first and foremost tool as far as keeping away negative energies and raising our own vibrations. And again, the guides have asked us, because we've been so busy with moving and stuff, make sure you do them in the morning before you get going. That enables us to protect you throughout the day. And then we always do them at night again, too. And it's a layer of protection. It's also basically clearing, because again, Sanskrit is derived in a way that the sounds will open up your chakras. And so saying them in Sanskrit is much more powerful than saying something in English. Absolutely, far more powerful. So you're keeping the energies open, the chakras are open, the Kundalini energy is allowed to flow. And ultimately, Kundalini is a creative energy. And it is something that has to be opened up slowly and through, basically you don't want to rush it. So, because Cindy can attest to rushing, as, she had her activation and it was a hard thing. And if you ever read Gopi Krishna's book, Gopi Krishna, Kundalini, the Evolutionary Energy in Man. It's a very old book. It's his life story. He was put in the hospital, because of a Kundalini experience. I was blessed that for me it came very, very smoothly, but that's because of 30 years of Qigong practice. So, not everybody has gone through that type of practice to where it makes it a smooth, even procedure to happen, and also past life too. So wanted to share that. But if you look to your Vedic astrology chart, absolutely, that could give you a huge clue as to why am I here and what is my purpose for this life. And just in that, there's so many different things you could look at. Rahu, Ketu axis is a big one, axis, and that'll tell you a lot about what you've already done and what is going to be magnified in this life. And we could go on and on with the other things, but just wanted to give you a quick overview on that whole line of thinking about soul alignment and connecting to the higher self.
So hopefully you guys got something good out of this. We're always looking to give people a little deeper understanding and help them learn who they are. Are we done?
Yeah, except
for that guy.
So what happens when a black cat sniffs flour? Well, he looks cute, that's for sure. Looks like he's got a mustache there, doesn't it? Yeah, a little pantomime face. And then this guy, this reminds me of me in the morning. So, Cindy will help me with my hair and, brush it out for me in the mornings, as I haven't cut it since January of 2015. Maybe just a few dead ends here and there. So absolutely, please don't stop. Just keep going. You're putting me into a trance.
Indeed.
As always, God bless and namaste.
Namaste.